And now to our first conversation. With food inflation rates in October 2023 at 31.52% on a year-on-year basis, that's 7.8% higher compared to the rate recorded in October 2022 at 23.72%. Also, we saw data from SBM Intelligence shows that almost 50% of Nigerian minimum wage earners spend their entire income on food. What solutions can technology bring to drive food affordability in Nigeria? Joining us for this conversation is Mr. Larry Smith, CEO of World Bay Technologies and founder of Grocedy. Joining us right here in the studio. Good morning, great to have you.
Good morning.
Yeah,
pleasure to have you.
Yeah, so quite a stark data we have there, and today is Black Friday.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if Nigerians will be able to get good deals for foods, maybe in restaurants and all of that, maybe some 80 or 90% off, hopefully. But looking at this data, right now, showing that Nigerians, the average minimum wage earner spends everything, on food at this time. Looking at the situation in Nigeria with food, would you say it's self-inflicted?
Well, some people might say that, but I would like to focus more on, trying to find what the solutions are. For a long time, I think we've been kicking the football forward, and now, the chickens have come home to roost. So it's time to just think about how we can make food a bit more affordable. And I think, there are solutions out there that are actually doing this.
And talking about, solutions, technology, we've talked about how to, get the farmers back to the farm, maybe, help, with technology so that they can bring out more food, solve the insecurity, issues. Talk to me about, how technology can, solve all these problems, because it's a domino, at this point.
Yeah. So, I think to answer that, we first need to ask ourselves, why is food more expensive? Why is it not as affordable? Like you said earlier on, inflation year on year is about 31%. But if you go back to even August, it was at 27%. So you see that it's actually moving, in leaps and bounds. Food becomes more expensive because of issues like insecurity. Farmers are not able to get back to the farm because of banditry. We have also had increase across the entire supply chain. So when you look at transportation, logistics, storage, all these adds up. If you take a simple supply chain scenario where you have the farmers at the top, you have the manufacturers, you have the distributors, wholesalers, and retailers. In every one of those steps, you can see that the inputs, their production inputs has actually gone up. And this is because of the macro economy that we find ourselves. So technology now becomes very important and plays a huge part in addressing some of those areas. So if you look at every single supply chain that we've spoken about, technology is I would say is a key driver in helping to reduce prices there.
And talking about solutions at this time, we are where we are. Food inflation over 30% at this point. You go to the supermarket, you go to the market, and you're spending incredible amounts, for just little stuff. You don't even forget to fill up your basket, going forward. So talk to me about the kind of solutions that are out there right now to help with affordability. How can people, buy food for cheap at this point, even though it's expensive? Yeah.
So first of all, food has to be produced cheaper, right? So the first things first is what are the technologies that are there that are helping to make food be produced and distributed cheaper. Artificial intelligence is helping, things with precision farming, and there's a lot that is going on in that space. Also in terms of optimizing the supply chain, being able to match properly demand and supply, predictive market pricing, all these things actually happen like in the background. But most importantly, how does this now trickle down to the customer? So I think very importantly, we now have to start thinking and cultivating new habits. Time past, you just go to the supermarket and shop. What needs to happen now, you need to start thinking more about your shopping decisions, where you shop, how you save towards actually shopping. Just like if you're going to make a car purchase, most times you just don't go and swipe your card and buy a car. You start saving towards it. You start making those plans. You start putting some money aside. So we have platforms like ours that enable consumers to start putting money aside and start making those conscious habits to actually save towards their food. What we do as Grocedy is we sort of encourage this saving habit. Then through the large purchasing power of a community that we've built, we're able to now speak with the manufacturers, with the farmers, and buy directly from them, using these economies of scale to drive down pricing, and which we can end up, passing on to the consumers as well. And there are other platforms that are, that are doing other things in that space too.
Because I also hear about, bulk purchases, coming together, pooling funds, to get food cheaper, for people that participate, in that. And I'm wondering, how's that going to work? How does it work, really? There are different platforms that have different models. I can speak to the model we use, and the model we use is more of a subscription service. So what happens is you make your contributions, and we pull all these funds together, and like I said, we buy directly from the manufacturers. We repackage these into monthly subscriptions, especially the staples, because the staples are the things that everybody needs in their houses and they use on a very frequent basis. So there's a bit of a predictability towards what you're going to buy. So we can put that in a monthly subscription service, allow you to save towards that, and then we do all the the heavy lifting at the back end using technology to optimize finance, logistics, and last mile. And talking about the heavy lifting, at this point, there's also a high cost of doing business. Right now we're seeing diesel prices up, fuel prices. I bought fuel this morning, and it almost costs the minimum wage, at this point. How are you able to navigate all of that to get food cheaper to people?
Yeah, I think sustainability, becomes like very important. We employ a lot of sustainable ways in which we do our storage, for example, and even our last mile delivery. We use solar energy where it's actually possible. So a lot of the inputs actually become well thought out. If you think about how your production cost goes up, and you find ways to actually reduce that, then you can pass on most of these savings to your users as well. Our aim is to be able to get food to our consumers below inflation. At some point, we want to be able to be negative inflation, and I think it is possible. Technology can actually help us do that.
Yeah, I definitely cannot wait to a time where I can report, our inflation rate is actually dropping, growing at a slower pace. I'm definitely hoping, for that time soon. But talk to me again about artificial intelligence. Everyone's talking about artificial intelligence. It can do this, can do that. And there's also the talk about, being an existential threat, to humanity.
Yeah.
But talk to me about how we can actually use AI, to solve this food problem.
Yeah, I think AI is going to do a lot. It's already doing a lot. I'll give you some examples of how AI is helping to make food more accessible and more affordable. For example, in the area of precision farming, where farmers are actually able to use things like sensory imagery and satellite images to sort of analyze their fields, so they can actually optimize their resources, things like water, pesticides, and also fertilizers. Those things are the things that actually drive production costs lower. So artificial intelligence is actually is helping there. We also have things like optimizing the entire supply chain, being able to match demand and supply in terms of logistics, being able to predict market pricing so that we know when the market needs things and when we need to store. Artificial intelligence is playing a huge part there as well. Then we look at, let's even come down to the consumer side and look at the mobile applications. On the mobile application side, from the farmer side, farmers are now able to get better information, better cultivating tips, so they can actually reduce their cost. And then on the consumer side, they're able to quickly see what pricing are doing. They're able to optimize that part of it. And lastly, I would say access to finance, agri-financing, right? Both on the farmer side and on the consumer side. I think alternative credit scoring models are now very, very possible and are being used to give farmers access to more credits, and they can use that to actually bring down costs. And as well as, platforms like ours have actually taken that a step further, and we're now being able to do credit scoring using alternative data for our consumers and give them access to financing so that they can actually make these purchases as well.
Quite a lot of data, definitely there. But looking at the federal government's body language at this time, you've seen the budgets. We've seen other data coming out, Q2 data. We've seen the economy not growing, like it did, in 2022. What kind of policies would you like to see, from the government to support, businesses like yours that are trying to get food cheap to the people?
Okay, I think the government is doing quite a bit now. I think it's going to take some time before we start seeing some of these policies actually work. But I would also like to add that, whilst there's been a lot of focus with this government and even previous governments as well on policies that speak directly to agriculture, but I think this needs to be expanded more to speak more towards the agri-tech ecosystem. I'll give a good example. For example, there needs to be policy and policy frameworks that sort of reward investors trying to come in to invest in sustainable energy, sustainable cooling. A huge portion of our outputs from the farms goes out as waste. And then, it goes out as waste and spoilage because they cannot afford to actually cool these items to preserve their shelf life. And there are a lot of investors that are willing to come in to invest in sustainable ways to actually ensure that we don't have these sort of spoilage. But we need government policies and frameworks to sort of help that. And then lastly, being able to align with our objectives, startups like us that have a specific objective to drive food prices lower. We'll need some policies from the government to sort of help us to ensure that our objectives are actually being met through a collaborative approach. Yeah.
So definitely 2023, a really tough year. It's winding down, gradually at this point. And looking into 2024, what are you seeing in terms of trends, technology that would come up, to solve this problem? And what are you seeing for food affordability, going forward?
I think for food affordability, the first thing we need to really take care of is food security. Food security is very important. We need to get our farmers back in the farm. We need to ensure that they're safe and they're able to improve their yields. I've just spoken about how technology can help do this, and we need a lot of government support and actually actions, less words and now actions to enable us to do this. Once we have a semblance of where food security is going, there are thousands of organizations out there, both national, subnational, and international, willing to partner with us to ensure that we get this food out to our users as affordably as possible. Investments needs to actually come in to enable us scale these sort of solutions, because once these solutions are just localized, it only benefits a few people. We need to be able to scale this across regions, across the country as well.
Definitely. Well, we're all looking forward to the best for 2024.
We hope so.
Even as 2023 winds down, I hope all the macro headwinds ease going forward.
We hope so. We hope so.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Larry Smith, founder of Grocedy and CEO of World Bay Technologies.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, after the break, we get a sense of what to expect as consumers in Nigeria hunt for Black Friday deals today. That's the moment to stay with us.